In this video, I'm going to show you how to allocate budget across Google's multiple campaign type to maximize number of revenue and return on ad spend, right? Because the big question that gets asked around in the e-commerce space is how much budget should I be allocating towards PMAX? How much budget should I be allocating towards search? How much budget should I be allocating towards YouTube if you have a YouTube campaign? How much budget should I be allocating towards display? And I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that and what I recommend across managing over $30 million plus in spend on Google Ads, right? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you my screen over here, and I have a chart that is broken down in where you should be allocating your budget across the different campaign types, across brand and non-brand campaigns. My name is Frank Kenny. I'm the head of growth here at Lion Media. We're a performance marketing agency that helps e-commerce grow and scale the brands to the moon. Without further ado, let's jump into it, right? So as you can see my screen over here, right, I have this little chart which has the different campaign types on Google, right? Starting with brand, right, which is both search and PMAX as well, right? Because when you're building out campaigns, I always recommend to have a branded search campaign and a branded PMAX campaign, right? And we're going to talk about how much budget should be allocated towards that. And you also have PMAX as well, right? PMAX is typically a non-brand campaigns, and I'm going to show you how to, or the best way to essentially set up your PMAX campaign. And as well as like search, how much should you be allocated towards search, YouTube, display, and discovery, right? So we did an audit for this brand in terms of like how they were allocating their budget across all the different campaigns type, right? And they were pretty close to what we recommend, right? And what we recommend is, one, you want to be spending around 10% of overall budget on brand campaign. So this plays defense, right? So you're bidding against your own keywords, so other competitors are not bidding on your own keywords or taking your search volume, right? So it's important that you're spending at least 10% of overall budget on branded campaigns. And this is across PMAX and search, right? So if you have a $100,000 budget, right, or so, maybe you can spend around $10,000 on both, brand PMAX and brand search, right? And obviously this is also going to depend on the scale of your brand, how well known you are, right? And if you're able to be spending that much on Google, then obviously you're a pretty big brand, right? And then the next thing is we have PMAX, right? How much should you be allocating towards PMAX? Now PMAX is now used as the main acquisition driver from a campaign perspective on Google, right? And we recommend spending bare minimum of 60% of overall budget on PMAX, right? And you can build multiple PMAX campaigns, all focused on acquisition, right? Meaning going after net new customers that don't know about your brand. And when you're doing that, you always want to make sure that you have brand exclusion, because the big thing with PMAX is that PMAX tends to go, the way it's set up, it tends to go it tends to bid a lot on branded terms without having that brand exclusion, right? And we have different videos to show you essentially how you can apply brand exclusion to Google, but it's important that you prioritize PMAX on acquisition only, right? So within the settings, when you're building a campaign, you're focusing it on new customers acquisition. In addition to that, you want to exclude brand, right? So again, it's a campaign primarily going after new customers, right? That's a very important piece that a lot of marketers, brands, CEO, whoever's running your Google ad account will overmiss, right? And then the next step, next to that is search, right? How much budget should I be allocating towards a separate search campaign that is not already inclusive within PMAX, right? And we recommend around 18% or minimum 18% of overall budget should be going on search, right? Because PMAX won't cover every aspect of search or every keyword, right? And there's kind of different strategy with that, which I'll share some of that in this video. But again, 18% of overall budget minimum is allocated towards search, essentially going obviously after net new customer or non-branded search term that either PMAX is not already covering, or maybe you just kind of want to exhaust that. So when you look at your PMAX, keywords that PMAX is bidding on, you can take some of those and essentially place them within a separate search campaign to essentially kind of maximize that more, right? So 18% is what we recommend. Sometimes brands spend a little bit way too much on non-brand search. And the thing with non-brand search is like, it's not going to be sufficient, right? I mean, it all depends on the category that you're in, but non-brand search is typically not as efficient, right, compared to PMAX. And sometimes brand overspend on non-brand search and essentially, losing revenue and losing money on the non-brand search campaign, right? So that's why I say it's important to spend a minimum of at least 18% of overall budget on non-brand search. And then you have video, right? Video, which is essentially going to be YouTube campaigns. So you have like your YouTube and you have like shorts, right? And we recommend around like 8% on YouTube. And the reason why is, YouTube has a very wide reach, right? You can reach a lot of people on YouTube. And if you're able to curate great videos and use it on YouTube, one is, from a brand awareness perspective, as people are seeing those messages on YouTube, right? A lot of people are going to be going up and searching up your brand term on search. And so then you have your other campaigns, which is like your branded campaigns that can capture that attention that you're creating. So YouTube is a demand generation platform, right? So where it creates the demand and builds brand awareness for your brand. So that's why you don't need to spend a whole lot on YouTube, but at least a minimum of 8% of overall budget allocated towards YouTube. You won't see a whole lot of conversion on YouTube unless your video is like top notch and like you're just like an expert in video generation and telling stories and essentially also doing performance marketing like with the call to action, essentially persuading people to convert, right? Unless you're doing that on YouTube, you're typically not going to see a high efficiency on YouTube from a revenue perspective, right? You're also going to get some conversion, but the main play with YouTube is mostly from a brand awareness perspective and creating demand, right? And the effect of that is that when you look at the funnel and when you look at the conversion path, it's like, okay, people saw this YouTube video and then they went on Google and searched up for your brand name, and then boom, you have your branded campaign that already converted them, right? And so that's the strategy with that. Now, going down to display, we don't spend much on display. So this is kind of, take this with a grain of salt, but if you are going to spend money on display, only use it for remarketing, right? And if you are going to use it for remarketing, only allocate about like 3% of overall budget on display, right? Display is, if you don't know what a display campaign is, it's essentially just banner ads, that is going to run across multiple websites that Google have partnership with, which is around like 60 maybe to 65% of the overall web, which Google has access to. So they're going to be displaying your ads across a multitude of different websites, right? And so I would say only use that for remarketing. So essentially the people that have seen your ads on YouTube, right, or on PMax somewhere, then you can just remarket to those people specifically on display. As they're going to be going on the web, they're going to be going on a different website, they'll see banner ads of your company just with a call to action to go and purchase the product, right? So that's the only way that we use display. It's not from an acquisition perspective, right? And so that's a key thing to note. And then last and not least, you have discovery. Discovery is not a campaign that you can, essentially like a standalone campaign that you can build anymore on Google. I believe they have taken that away, but in the past we've allocated only like 2% of overall budget on discovery. So just kind of looking at this, you can take this budget and reallocate it towards PMax, right? Or you can reallocate it towards like a search campaign or something like that, right? But again, this is what that target budget allocation looks like and what we recommend at Lion Media, right? And when we audit this brand and we're just kind of tracking and seeing how much they're allocated in comparison to what the target or to what we recommend, right? So on brand, they did put a decent job of like allocating around like 8% of overall budget on branded campaigns, right? When you look at it, if they're spending like $44,000 a month on advertising, 5,000 of that is going to go towards brand campaign, right? And when you look at the PMax as a main acquisition platform, then around 53% of that, if 53% of that overall budget was going towards PMax, right? Where we recommend 60, so 53 is not bad. So around like $22,305 was allocated towards PMax out of the 44,000 overall budget. And then on search, they were actually it looked like overspending on search campaign for good reasons too. Each brand is going to be decent. It's going to be different, but I still think this is just a little bit too much. Maybe around like 25 or so would have been better, because again, with non-branded search, it doesn't necessarily drive as high of an efficiency, right? Again, with different brand, different categories, which a lower efficiency on non-brand search is okay. That's okay. You have a higher lifetime value and you don't need that efficiency on the front end, right? And so that's kind of like the only way to where you can overspend on non-brand search, because it has a lower return on ad spend, right? So for this specific brand, they spend around like, out of the $44,000, spend around $16,906 on non-brand search. And they don't really allocate anything to like video, display, or discovery, as you guys can see over here, right? So I think this brand was pretty healthy from the audit that we did. It's just that we would spend a little bit less on non-brand search and more on Performance Max, because just they were seeing that higher efficiency. As you can see, that the efficiency over here, the ROAS that they have from non-brand search was a 1.31, and when you look at the PMax had a 2.54, right? And obviously brand with a 9.26, return on ad spend, right? So guys, that is what, from a budget allocation perspective, what we recommend across different campaigns on Google, right? Hopefully this video was helpful. If it is, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Leave a thumbs up if you did find it helpful, and subscribe to the channel. Talk to you soon.